right, we've got something slightly different now. We're going to move on to our CEO's Conclave. It's more of a round table. Now, this is going to be talking about the remake, the biggest transformation journeys. Okay, it's a roundtable discussion that's going to touch upon everything from tech to human touch to business transformation strategies and so much more. So this roundtable is going to be held right here in the middle of the room, but of course it will be, where I am, huge up here, so you'll be able to see everybody. So first of all, let me welcome our CEOs today. Please give them a round of applause. Mr. Ahmed Rageb, Group CEO from Baraka Retail Group. Mark Tessiman, CEO for Leeward Trading Enterprises. Neeraj Tekchandani, Group CEO from the Apparel Group. Nadine Penchafai, I hope I've said that correctly, CEO of Ab Fab Foods. Lena Khalil, co-founder and CCO of Mum's World. Tapan Vaidya, CEO of PJP Investments Group. We also have Mohammed Iqbal Alawi, board member and CEO of Red Sea Markets Company from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Mohsin Ahmad, CEO for the Logistics District for Dubai South. Krishna Dhanak, once again, is back, the Managing Director of Alpen Capital. And our roundtable monitors, we do welcome back our editor, Rubkata Baumik, and also Director of Sales for Zebra, Josefa Salewala. So I hope I've got everybody's name there. They will be sitting in the middle. Enjoy the roundtable. Thank you so much.
All of you for joining us today. Diving straight into our conversation. The retail industry entered 2022 amid a lot of challenges. High inflation rates, still a lot of challenges related to supply chain, labor shortages, and so much more, geopolitical pressures and unpredictable consumer behavior. So here today, we are going to discuss some of the biggest transformation journeys in retail in the MENA region. On that note, I'm going to hand the conversation over to Josefa for now.
Thank you, Roop. So we heard in the previous presentation a few quotes, and I think one of the quotes that I would like to bring onto the table is disruption accelerates transformation. And I think we will all agree to that. We have seen that over the last 2 years, at what pace organizations have adopted transformation journey. For retailers, it is a bit of a different cycle because you have to take into consideration your customers first, their changing behavior, and then you have to look at what is the way to approach them with the changing behavior of your staff. While we were ticking these two boxes over the last 3 years or so, another checklist item has been added, which is the carbon footprint. So now, while we are transforming, we also have to start looking at how am I becoming environmentally conscious to reduce the carbon footprint in my business. So, we have all transformed, undoubtedly. And each one of you have gone through that transformation journey. What we would like to understand from you is, through an example, do tell us what has been your most inspiring and eventful transformation journey in your business. It's open to all of you. I will request one of you to take a lead and start. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Ahmed Ragab, CEO of Baraka Retail Group, a retail group based in Egypt, operating 3 divisions, around 60 plus stores, through around 10 brands. We have the optics, fashion, and e-commerce. I believe the major transformation is not something that happened or not, it is something mainly that since the past 3 years with the COVID, all companies all over the world need to have the flexibility to be able to, and adaptability to adapt to different circumstances. We had the COVID, the lockdowns, now the supply chain problems, the Ukrainian-Russian war, the currency fluctuation, different problems, and it will always go on. So I believe the major transformation is the mindset of the organizations how to be adaptable to different problems. This can be through e-commerce transformation or including e-commerce in the business. This can be, for example, when we had supply chain issues, we started the local manufacturing thing, which was a major transformation for the grid being from importation to local manufacturing. We increased the portion of local manufacturing, adaptability of the teams, of the numbers, everything. So I believe the key transformation is the transformation of the mindset from having a one-way track to be adaptive and flexible to reshift the business model every now and then. Yeah.
Thank you, Ahmed. So as if I can tell you means few of the initiatives that we did over the last 18 to 24 months in light of the new dynamics that we see both in terms of the customer, the pandemic and the post-pandemic effects. One of the things which we started early in our journey at the apparel group was the launch of our marketplace, sixthstreet.com. And that helped us big time in retaining the customers, especially during the pandemic period when the stores were closed. But taking that to the next level, we did a complete omni-channel experience between our offline, online, and the Club Apparel, the loyalty program, which has got close to 4 million members. That way you will have a single view of the customer across the channels. And we are investing further into a lot of the data science and CRM platforms to take that to the next level. So that was one of the highlights, I can say, by connecting all the platforms and giving the experience to the consumer. Sixth Street went to the next level also when they opened the first phygital store. And my colleague Dharmeen, who will be speaking next, will walk you through that. But that has been the first in the region and has been an astonishing part of the consumer journey. So, but looking to the customer's convenience, we adopted mobile point of sale. So most of our new stores now are with mobile point of sale. Some of the stores have also implemented self-service kiosks and many immersive technologies which are coming through. And technology has been a key driver, even in terms of the supply chain from the visibility perspective, and more investments are being made with respect to the automation and so on. Thank you.
Maybe I can go next. My name is Tapan Vaidya. I'm the CEO at Papa John's UAE, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan. See, it is well understood that staying in tune with upgrading tech is the order of the day. Being a pizza business, we were thankfully well invested in tech long before COVID. So it was relatively easy for us to upgrade our technologies instead of having to start from scratch. Since then, though, we have sharpened our act with tech on multiple fronts. But let me talk about this one aspect. See, apart from the quality of our pizzas, our customers also look at the time we take to deliver each pizza. So what we did, we looked at our kitchen operations and broke down the entire process in multiple steps. Essentially, to make a pizza, you slap the dough, you sauce the dough, you top the dough, you bake the pizza, then you cut and box the pizza, and then it goes out. So we started tracking cook times, slap time, top time, bake time. All these times, we started tracking them. And it's really important because you want to know which restaurant is taking longer to top a pizza, which restaurant is taking longer to dispatch a pizza after it is boxed. And this is how we track all of our 78 restaurants and ensure the restaurant which needs help is provided help, employees are trained, and our customers ultimately benefit from a pizza delivered in under 40 minutes.
In the past 3 years post-COVID, we witnessed in Egypt, I don't know the case here in UAE, that people tend to spend more times at home. People are more homey and How did you adapt to this change in pattern that people would prefer to have the food at home rather than going out with more gatherings and so on? Have you adapted your menus apart from the technology to adapt with that or not?
So obviously that is the case pretty much globally, where the consumption has started happening at home rather than outside. Although thankfully that is slowly changing. I mean, at one point in time, so for the 3 months of lockdown in UAE, 99% of our business was through delivery. Fortunately, now that has come back down to, we are at 57% delivery and the rest dine-in and takeaway. Mind you, dine-in and takeaway, these are more productive channels for us. And we will always tend to promote dine-in and takeaway over delivery. At the same time, we cannot ignore delivery because that is the new behavior.
Just to take it forward from the point about time to customer, when we launched Mum's World 11 years ago, it was very focused on delivering the largest range. So assortment was key to our propositions, and that's because assortment was the biggest pain point we identified with the consumer. The Middle East 11 years ago was a very different landscape. As we evolve and we continue to focus on the consumer, we noticed that time to consumer is important. So now we started aiming for the largest selection that solves the mother's problems. And as we evolved, we said it's more important to have not only the largest selection, so trying to drive quickly with an asset-light model, we said we have to make sure she gets it very quickly. So today, going from having very little in our inventory, today we can deliver over 70% of our items to the consumer in 24 hours, which means that most of it is sitting with us. So we had to do a very, very fine balancing act between how much we invest to deliver the items on time and how big the catalog is. We continue to aim to have the biggest selection of solution-driven items, but also delivering that to the consumer very quickly. It is a very expensive ask by the consumer, with some players today doing it in under 15 minutes. But I think so far as our consumers' NPS score continues to be high, especially in November when everybody wants everything cheap and quickly, we'll continue to look at what they want and deliver that for them.
This is Mohsen Ahmed. Just wanted to add on the technology, and also it's a bit tempting that I sit on a table with almost some customers and some potential customers, so I have to be careful here with my statements, I guess. And being so the only government maybe representative, I don't know if it's called a strike of luck or a coincidence. I mean, just pre-COVID, and we were working on something that the Dubai government was to create sort of the e-commerce strategy. So that strategy came into effect September 2019. Our Easy Dubai, sort of an e-commerce zone, we launched that in January 2020. So it's kind of like when March 2020 was there, we kind of it was almost sort of e-commerce was booming, and we kind of had that readiness. But that readiness helped us through technology, and today, being a sort of a bonded or sort of a free zone, we were always bound by a very sort of a customs process of going through inspection and all that. So during that, when we launched the Easy Dubai, we became a sort of a very creative, what we're calling the hybrid option, where you benefit the free zone, and yet you can maintain what Lena was mentioning, sort of the 24-hour delivery. And only technology is something that we could integrate with the customs that allowed us to be so quick. Because I think one of the roles as a government, I think what Tapan was very rightly mentioned, you're measuring how fast you do it. As long as that product is moving towards the end user, it's adding value. If it's staying stagnant, that thing is not adding value. It's in fact probably getting devalued. And that was our objective, is how do we do it as fast as possible to ensure that and yet the companies benefit from sort of financial benefit from the sort of the duty and all that. So that's one thing I wanted to add on how technology can enable the benefit both to the people selling and also the speeding up of the processes.
panel speaking alone, but I want to ask about something. Managing the Dubai e-commerce city or e-commerce place. Let me challenge you on that and take the counterpart of the discussion. How fast do you believe that the technology is transformation of technology from normal retail practices to e-commerce retail practices? Because this has been the topic for the past 3 years since COVID. But how can we measure it numerically? Is it with the same pace at the discussions or at a slower pace? How do you evaluate the percentage of e-commerce business done compared to normal retail business?
The question, right? But I think we are not into the retail, so I think the experts are here on the retail, on the table, who probably tell you what is actually sort of that percentage. But certainly, I think COVID, I think Tapan rightly mentioned, this thing hit 90% on some of the areas for the retailers. Now, how did the technology help? I mean, one of the things that we did in a normal, I'll just give you, on a normal free zone, we were doing shipment by shipment document. We said, forget this doesn't work. Because what's happening is in the past, you were shipping out of the free zones a container. Today, you want to ship out pieces. Your sizes became less and your frequency has increased. No way you're going to have that many inspectors. No way you're going to have that much. You're going to cross all that. So the only way was that how do we do it intelligently? Through integrating with the customs. So our gate systems or everything was very much integrated with it. And now we're bringing other players like the Dubai municipalities and all that, other regulatories, that these are pre-approved to go out to the market. Because that's one of the challenges. If you're into the toys or anything, you need to have, and if you're storing it in the sort of the freezer, you need to have some sort of pre-approval from some of the regulatories to allow. And that's where this technology is enabling to move it faster. Now, is this the end? No, I think this is just the beginning. There will probably need to be a lot more done going forward to enable, because like we mentioned, your value is added if that thing is moving. If it's not moving, it doesn't add much value.
Hello. My name's Mark from Lewa. I think it sounds like everybody else has got great strategies around the table. I think pre-COVID, we were winging it, to be quite frank. And I think my team are probably still winging it in part as we evolve our strategies. I think the thing that we did in our business was try and focus on the things that you could control rather than the things that you couldn't. And then try to create a marriage between tech and the human capital. Because with the best tech in the world, if people don't know how to use it, then you've got a big problem. And I think we certainly found that in our business. So the execution of the technology that we employed was a bit of a problem. It identified big training requirements and how you actually went about giving that training so that the end use was efficient and gave you 100% return was also a bit of a challenge. We had no e-commerce pre-COVID. We've now got 21 different channels, and we did that in 18 months. We launched our first website in 3 weeks, and everybody said it wasn't possible. It's amazing what people can do when adversity comes. We had no CRM. We've now got a database that's got 2.5 million people on it. It contributes about 55% of our total sales come from our database, and it's something that we've built on rapidly. But it was this, I mentioned the comment already, this marriage between tech and human capital that was the most important thing. Because when we are focused on our internal colleagues and the consumer, sometimes we were running the business for running the business's sake and not concentrating on what the consumer actually wanted. That was the biggest difference. When we started to speak to the consumer and said, well, what do you actually want? Then we changed our strategies to focus on giving them what they wanted rather than giving them what we thought they wanted.
I'm glad to be here today. In terms of technology, maybe I would like to tackle it from different point. We are not retailer, we are developer, retail real estate and shopping mall. Definitely technology is a part of our journey. And maybe we remember we was in the era we was talking about how to improve your operation and to activate it through what we call the ISO and all things. With an introduction of the all ARBs today, and we deal with it, it improved the relation between our tenant, between our customer, even the efficiency of our operation. We're going through a major transformation now in reviewing all our ARB, how to make it communicating directly to our to our client and also our customers. Examples, we have all the ARB system now could go sending invoices directly to the tenant, answering all their questions through their different divisionals like the renter or collection or other things. But the most important thing, I think, is what we could notice now in technology is how also to rethink about our utilities and service providers from human resource, manpower-driven contract to technology, efficiency, times, especially when government now also imposing a lot of regulations in terms how to control your environmental impact, all the license, everything had become digital now. Invoicing, VAT, taxations, how to link your system with the government system, how to link your tenant to your system, to the government system. You could see the whole circle is going through how to integrate the relation between your tenant and your customer who's coming to your area, and also to review how you improve your communication with your customer and visitor, and to make it a pleasant journey. I'm glad to have next to me a government body, which we work together always, maybe not in Dubai, but in Saudi. But I have to admit that government those days in the region moving faster than we thought in the past by imposing a lot of regulations. A law in Saudi Arabia came recently about the camera law systems now in public and commercial area. And if you go through the list of that law and how the systems have to be linked and what type of technologies, face recognition, heat recognition, and all those issues to help you in preparing your data and building your data, also to analyze it in the future, but also to secure other reasons. So I think technology is going to be a part of our journey with a tenant, retailer like you here, and hopefully it will improve our efficiency and our service providings to our customer and also to our client.
Hi, my name is Krishna. Pleased to be here with you. I'm not remotely associated with the retail sector as such. We're an investment bank. But I'd just like to share a few thoughts as an observer or somebody who's grown up in this region for the last 30, 35 years. So literally seen what has been created in this region completely out of sand into brick and mortar and now really dominated by digitization. So for me personally, over the last few years, what's been really encouraging to see is that despite there being the large players, despite there being the large e-commerce players, how people have managed to develop niche concepts. And those niche concepts today, one of them sitting right next to me, have become sort of unicorns, and how they've created marketplace for themselves. And literally how concepts like Cloud Kitchen have come up in the last few years. Basically, the whole environment of entrepreneurship being driven amongst newcomers in the business and how they have been able to successfully drive their businesses. Thank you.
I'm Nadine Bentefai. We have brands such as Tocado and Circle Cafe. So for us, the transformation, Tocado has always been ahead of the curve. We were probably the first customizable concept that was launched. We were the first on kind of the delivery platforms. I think our burrito was one top 5 selling worldwide in delivery back in 2017. So we were pretty ahead of the curve. Our prep times, I think you were talking about prep times. Our prep time was 1.5 minutes, which was pretty fast, kind of from order to out the door. So I think we were pretty set when it came to COVID, but we took the transformation we went through was we decided that we took a brand, Circle Cafe, which was kind of like an oldie but goldie, and that needed a bit of a transformation. And I took that on March 1st, 2020, just as we were about to have to shut half the stores down. And the biggest transformation from a tech side really has been kind of on the inventory on the back end. So probably less on the customer focus side, but really on the back end side, because we really didn't know what was going on in those stores. And so we were lucky that there was COVID kind of fast-tracked a lot of the new tech that was happening, especially on the F&B side. And so we kind of took a leap of faith and took on some very I would say the not normal kind of inventory formats that were out there. We took something from the UK, and that allowed us to really transform Circle from a cost perspective, because we were hemorrhaging, and really made big changes. And from marrying it with people, it was really important to find tech that the staff were really comfortable and easygoing, because otherwise they'll just keep making mistakes. So we had an old system and they just kept getting it wrong, and after 2 months of just hell, I just abandoned and kind of, so sometimes you also have to walk away from a sunk cost and embrace some new technology rather than constantly be in kind of fear. So I'd say definitely always keep an eye out on the new. The market's changing so fast. The biggest advice would be kind of just stop thinking of the sunk cost syndrome. There are so many things that are so much better that I kind of wish I had done even earlier. And now that we have sold our group of brands, I get to do that kind of from scratch. Kind of I get to build it, knowing what I know.
Thank you. Thank you for the insights. It's amazing, right? We spoke about disruption. We said acceleration in digital transformation, and we were talking about transformation overall, but the subject did go back into the technology. So the underlying message here is, as we drove transformation, tech became a big moving piece in that. A question to you, Krishna. You presented a report this morning. From your perspective, which has been the biggest retail tech transformation that you have seen in this region?
So I think sitting right in front of me, Neeraj was talking about how they moved on from brick and mortar to digital e-commerce, and then now the first digital store. I think that's been really transformational for me to witness.
Thank you for that, Krishna. And I think a lot of takeaways that we did get, like within 18 months that you have transformed your business, Mark, to e-com, which didn't exist before, to you, Lena, where you have 70% of your goods now being made available to the customer within 24 hours time frame. One of the conversations that I have heard from customers and looking at some of the reports, especially around the last mile delivery companies, is, are we really setting the expectation of the customer to a level where we can't sustain it? And that's something that I will not discuss on this table. That's a different conversation altogether in terms of looking at it, but very interesting from your perspective, Mohsen, as well, to support what we heard about government changing rapidly. You have launched a hybrid model. Who would have thought 5 years ago a free zone who would be looking at, instead of shipping containers, getting the facilities to start shipping items at item level, rather, let me put it, to support the e-commerce transformation. So that's great. So we're talking about technologies here, and we are looking at how do you incorporate technology to make processes better, to get to the customers in the best way possible, and to transform the traditional way of doing business. To the point that Mark made, how do you marry technology to the human capital is the biggest thing. So while I have to meet the expectations of my customers, I also need to ensure that my human capital needs to transform, and how rapidly can I transform that? So can we hear one example? Now, I will direct these questions specifically to you, Neeraj. You have spoken about your physical store. Give us examples of how technologies have worked. And once I have got that answer, please feel free to also speak about where you think technologies have not worked for you, so that it becomes kind of a best practice sharing in this room to say where there are potential roadblocks or pitfalls if you're looking at technology from a particular perspective. So over to you, Neeraj.
First of all, from the consumer side of it, it has always been in the digital commerce, you don't have the look and feel. So apparel was very heavy on the brick and mortar side, and Sixth Street was doing the digital commerce. And we said, means how can we marry the two and give the experience that the consumer wants, which means he can shop online and return at store or collect at store, or do the vice versa. And he can do the same with the club apparel points as well. So we wanted to have that a seamless omni-channel experience for that consumer, and to give him the advanced technology of what he wants. So that store is about a 10,000 square feet store. Okay. Now we cannot carry the whole endless aisle of Sixth Street on that. So there was a lot of AI and ML running at the back of what the consumer in that vicinity has been shopping on the Sixth Street online platform. And then we brought that collection as a first thing. But that not only it stops there, then it keeps revising itself, or the machine keeps learning itself. A particular SKU, the consumer tries but never buys. You don't need to have that SKU on that store. So it's getting more intelligent and so on. And the people, so for the people, I can tell you means we did a couple of things. So one was, it was more a classroom training before. Today it's everything on the digital. So we have launched a digital learning and development program across the organization. Secondly, all mundane tasks which were earlier done, today are being done smartly with the robotics. The RPAs are in place. So all these things have helped us to reach to the consumer well ahead of time or their expectations.
Thank you, Neeraj, for that. So it's how do you bring the look and feel onto the digital platform and the incorporation of AI. So we did hear earlier in the presentations where there was a talk about how data is the new oil, and then how do you refine that data, right? So AI is actually that refining process of all the data that you collect, and then you see how do you use it. So very interesting perspective in terms of how you looked at bringing up the shopping habits of the people in that vicinity, your customers, and then bringing those items up in a digital format. Pretty interesting there. Lena, would you want to share with us any of your...
I think one of the challenges is, so AI is a great tool and using data is very important, but you also have to validate and use your human capital to validate what's happening. Because AI is just learning what is actually being fed to it. So if the data is fed to it the wrong way, or different departments, let's say, or different stakeholders will look at data different and use different pieces of data, they will come at very different outcomes, and their AI will, on different platforms, will translate it very differently. And in November, when we're going to market very aggressively and all hands are on deck, and everybody wants to use AI to personalize, you do find that there's a lot of gaps. So you need to validate every touch point and every system to make sure that the AI is actually delivering what you want. So today, we're trying to hyper-personalize the experience to the mom using AI, but we are finding gaps. And if you don't have the right set of data feeding the AI, you're getting the wrong results. And therefore, you're not converting or you're not optimizing, and there's a lot of problems. So you always have to validate, go back to the drawing board and check and double check and look at new systems. Maybe the tools you're using are outdated and there's something better, but you have to go back to the drawing board. It's not always working. It is a new tool, and it's a new translation of our reality, and we don't know if it works 100%.
Thank you for sharing that with us, because from technology perspective, one would have thought that if AI is married to prescriptive analytics, you have the suggestions coming from the artificial intelligence in terms of what the next step needs to be. But if the foundation at which the data is being captured is inaccurate, then you're right. Everything that the...
I think inaccurate may be too big a word. I think incomplete, and you need to continuously build that complete view. And humans have a better... We'll set up in a better way to understand the complete view. We understand what's seen and unseen. The machine doesn't. Yeah.
I'll give you a good example. I have a phrase that's garbage in, garbage out. It can happen. It's a very real thing. Where's Santosh, my head of IT? There he is. So this is my new boy. So he's been with us a few months. So offer him the job. It's got a big job because we've got, in the next 24 months or so, we've got to change our entire system, front end, back end, the whole thing. We've got we launched all the e-com stuff and all that kind of stuff that we've managed to do on legacy systems, nothing new, legacy systems. So I give him the job and he says, you do realise that 1/3 of all IT-led projects fail. So I'm thinking, he's either got a good excuse in there straight away, or he's trying to tell me something. So going through this process now, we're trying to find these implementation partners, and we're talking to some of the biggest companies in the world. These are multi-million-dollar deals. And can we find one that wants to actually accept some ownership? No, we cannot. It's very, very hard. Tier 1, Tier 2. So we're going through these processes, and it's taking months out of your life, I'm sure, Santosh, in terms of the difficulties that we've had with it. So I think that business stakeholders will actually lead change, not systems. Because if you choose the wrong system, then it's not actually going to give you the end result that you require. So you've got to be very clear what your business requires. Lots of tech companies want to sell you what they want to sell you, not what you actually need. It's a major problem. So rather than you walk into a presentation where these people are, giving the gilt edge to their systems, rather than saying, what do you need, they say, this is what we have. So they give you a vanilla system that just makes you like every other company. And the reality of life is that retail has always been about change and differential. And the most successful retailers, I think, always have a point of difference. They do something better than somebody else. And therefore, they're not vanilla by definition. So I think if you're implementing new system changes, you have to find something that's got a USP that suits your business. We have great complexities here in the GCC because most businesses here are multi-branded. So unlike other parts of the world, Niraj will have 70-odd different brands plus, I'm sure. We've got 20-odd. You can't have a vanilla approach sometimes because you've also got stakeholders somewhere else in the world that's your franchisor that are telling you what they want to do. So the level of complexity in the GCC markets, I think, is unparalleled. So good luck, Santosh. That's all I can say.
Santosh, you have been put in the spotlight here. All the best to you. Okay, so makes sense, and it's a fantastic perspective that you have given, and I like the terminology garbage in, garbage out. That's the founding principle of what technology can do for us based on what we feed into the technology. So Nadine, would you have any thoughts around this?
Yeah, I think so for us within F&B, we couldn't find, for anything from inventory to, there was no one system that could really do everything we wanted. And we had kind of a legacy system, and you have to sometimes just walk away. And so the key for us is kind of constantly scouring the market and finding different new players, but that integrate. So a lot of the new generation tech are typically kind of all online platforms, and they will typically integrate. So so we kind of took the best in class in each area. So if you're looking at loyalty, you're looking at inventory, you're looking at front of house POS, there was no one that could do it all. So we kind of took the best in class in each area and basically just worked on being kind of the best integrator and just made sure that they integrate. So it integrates to your account. So none of our systems are, we had kind of a legacy kind of your usual kind of Navision or whatever system. None of those kind of really worked for what we wanted to do. So we kind of took a bit of each one that was kind of best in class in what they did, because that's kind of how they work. They know their area really well, but they don't do everything else very well. And then you just get the best kind of integration within them, and that's kind of been probably the best approach. Also, a lot of these work on licenses, so you're not investing in this massive infrastructure that you can't walk away. If in 3 years' time a new system is far better for you than switching over, is not an issue, and you don't think, oh, I'm walking. I had investors who are like, well, we've invested 3 million dirhams in the system. I'm like, I don't care, it just doesn't work. So you just have to walk away. So that's the other kind of flip side. Is today we have bigger options. I think legacy systems are just thing of the past at the moment.
I think this has been fueled by the startups in Silicon Valley. If you looked at the technology landscape probably a decade ago, there were big players, tier 1, tier 2, and it was so easy for you to select what technology, right? If it was Microsoft Office, productivity tools, or I go for a database, from Sun Microsystem or so on. Today, if you look at the booming e-commerce space and you want to drive anything that touches your data and bring out information, there are hundreds of thousands of those companies out there that bring a lot of solutions onto the table. And to Mark's point, not about saying what they can deliver, but a lot of these companies are today saying we can personalize information around what you want to deliver. So the smaller the companies, the more agile they are, the more sensitive they are to what their customer wants. And to that point, Nadine, a question, when you say there are these, you take the best of the breed and make them work, is it too much of a complexity in terms of making all of them work seamlessly, because you don't have a single neck to choke when things go wrong?
No, because look, most of them, we're talking on the kind of, full tech. So, for example, our POS provider is different to the one that's integrating all the delivery aggregators, which is different to our accounting system, which is different to the back end, but they all integrate. And these are typically done by people who, so for example, our inventory is is a startup. It's not a startup anymore, but it was set up by F&B people for F&B. So it was much more geared than your kind of vanilla style kind of inventory systems that are out there that you then have to spend a fortune and have a tech team to kind of constantly update. So no, there is a bit of pain. They'll tell you it integrates perfectly, and then you realize that it doesn't. There's always teething pain going through it. But again, sometimes, it's not so hard to walk away and you try something else. They will not all work perfectly. That you will have one or two that don't work that you have to kind of maybe not, and change. So, but I just think like we have new generations of kind of, I guess, entrepreneurs who see the gaps. Like somebody like Lena would see the gap of what she's missing and what she can't find. And that will have a new generation of entrepreneurs that then creates that system geared for that use. And there's so much of that happening that I just think you just have to be open and scour what there is, rather than just saying, well, this is what, people will say to me, oh, this is what this big player, this is what Gourmet Golf is using, you should use it. This is what, and it's like they want to sell you what they have. And I'm like, oh, it's fine, it's good for them, great. I don't want that system. So you just have to kind of keep an open mind.
I think So I think the complexity is bigger on the back end. We try to deliver more kind of sophisticated, seamless experience to the consumer, but that's actually the easy part. Just making sure from a technology point of view, the availability, the process, the time to market, or the prep time of the industry, and making sure that you're on every single platform. You're delivering your data to multiple kind of platforms, whether it's on Deliveroo, Talabat, or it's on Google, it's on Facebook. So you're actually trying to work with lots of systems all the time. They keep on changing. You always hear about the algorithm change, and then everyone gets really upset. And then you need to connect to the really fast-moving government. So you need to kind of have a Lego approach where you're putting pieces in and taking them out, because you don't know tomorrow what will happen in the climate. I mean, Saudi wakes up in the morning, they decide the whole custom system changed, and by the afternoon, we all have to implement. Yeah, literally, yeah.
I do agree that the number of variety of the ARBs and systems seem to be is creating also a big pressure in our business, and how to link those systems. I do have a properties ARB, different from the service provider. The clinic have his own ARB, maybe G. Edward or Oracle. From the governmental point, they have their own system, GD Edward and things. But I think within all those variety of system and programs and how to link it together, in between, I think we forget that we need to make it simple, efficient, and good to our client and customers. Maybe we are lucky in this region that our total generation are younger than other country. Their adoption for the technology and all those systems are more advanced maybe than the others. I'm not sure about this. Yesterday I had an example in the hotel here. I checked 9:30 in the evening. Two couples, I think they are French, coming. The driver dropped them in this hotel because it's Jumeirah, but they are sitting in other Jumeirah, and they don't have except a card, and the card have Jumeirah without name. Is it Jumeirah Nassim or Jumeirah Al Qasr, or there is maybe 5-6 Jumeirah in this corridors. Now, the dilemma is the hotel couldn't identify which hotel they're staying by looking to their ID. This is to show you systems are not communicated, even with one a group, and somebody trying to help them. And I felt sorry for them because it was late. They want to go back to their rooms and say they missed know which hotel they are staying. They know they are in this corridor, but they don't know which hotel they stay there. Now, if you think about it, this is within one system of one chain. How about different chain, or how about systems, and how about the government, how about international also service provider? They have their own systems and things. And added to that, banking system and finance systems and all keep changing the regulation. It make the exercise not an easy, but in the end we have to live with it. We have to mingle and link system together and also try to satisfy our customer. About how complexity, today also one of the questions that it came to me in mind when people talking about, we used to think that experimental and functions, if you doing your home and function, that's enough. Now people, they're talking that it's not enough, you need to do it emotional experience, and to make sure that the experience keep your client to come back to you again and ask about it. That's another complexity, how we're going to go through it. But I think this is a part of our retail journey that we keep learning day by day and changing day by day, and this is why retail is a dynamic, not a statics industry.
One of the major transformations that we've witnessed in the past 3 years is the transformation in the Saudi culture. So as a retail developer or as a mall developer, as far as I know, how did you react to this transformation in the Saudi culture with your plans and with your malls and with your DNA of the retail properties you're developing?
I think people, they go 10 years ago, shopping mall was a major social window for people to go and enjoy. I think now with all this lifestyle and entertainment and event and all the shows and sport and gaming things, you need to try to rebalance your existing in this new era. What used to be work in the past does not work for new generation. Actually, there was an interesting study, I heard it from one of our entertainment operator. He done it recently. And he figured from that statistics and studies and survey, 64% of their audience tenant, they don't like to go to shopping mall anymore. Now, how are we going to invest on a shopping mall with the new technology? And this is to show you that malls are not anymore as it used to be closed mall. Now more people, they go in lifestyles, more on the, entertainment and event and even spa and all those health things. I think it's a pressure having to everything. Saudi changed totally. And I think according to that businessman and developer and that, they will have to change. Otherwise, business will not survive as it used to be.
So, since we are quoting statistics to support you, Mr. Muhammad, one of the reports says that 91% of the customers in MENA region are digital converts. What that means is they have adopted in some form or the other to transact digitally, whether it could be as simple as doing an online transaction or concluding their entire journey online. I think we have spoken a lot from the retail perspective, to a certain extent, even from the hospitality and the food perspective. What this is doing, this transformation, is that it is also putting a lot of pressure on the supply chain and the logistics part. So while we are servicing everything to the customer from my store, how is this demand planning affecting the supply chain and logistics landscape? So the question to you, Mohsen, is how do you see the landscape for supply chain and logistics changing overall to support this transformation happening with the retailers and the hospitality business?
I think what if COVID taught us something is like supply chain needs to be relooked at completely. I think that's one thing that basically the outcome of the supply chain, because I don't think anybody witnessed the disruption that we've seen. I mean, if you look at e-commerce, I would probably be safe. Probably 70 or 75% of your product was sourced out of China. China shuts down the gates, And there goes and that's, okay, if you were a big player, maybe you had it, but a lot of the SMEs, you see them on the e-commerce platform, they have that challenge that where to source. Now, I think the debate now is coming is what happens to sourcing of material. Is it going to be near sourcing? Is it going to be sort of closer to, because that also kicks in a lot of the sort of the ESGs and then the geopolitical thing, which I think that's, our view is that that's probably where things are going to hit to, where near sourcing will become a very sort of the future. I mean, there's no doubt what we saw in sort of what Apple did. First thing, they announced 10%, then they jumped up immediately 25% on sort of their production to India. And I think that's the sort of the trend you're going to see more and more people trying to diversify, because I think I'm a supply chain and logistics guy. I think year 2020 was our revolutionary year. We became very important people on across every board, where supply chain risk assessment was never there. Everything was, let's do lean, manufacturing, get it out to. So that's our view that there will be a change, and companies will, because of the smaller manufacturing, that will also give them the agility to cooperate of the sort of mass customization that the new generation is asking. They're very much demanding on what they want.
I think just on this point, whereas before, I think the kind of, it was a race to the bottom. You get the cheapest supply from the quickest manufacturer. I think now it's more about a risk cost, and I think everyone's doing a 3-tiered approach where you actually measure the quality of your supplier by location and price, as opposed to before when you were just looking at who can do it the fastest at the lowest cost. And today, doing kind of a concentric circle and saying, okay, I need to be able to get the same item from different distant circles, so I can, if everything is okay and we don't have COVID and no energy crisis, I can go to the furthest point and get it at the lowest price. But as the world gets more unpredictable, I need to kind of bring that a bit closer. But it means that teams are having to work a lot harder, think a lot more creatively. And unfortunately, the supply chain is not moving. So there's no innovation there. There's no innovation at the source of, the raw material and the manufacturer. They're just trying to make ends meet because it's very, very tough. And if the economic climate gets worse, they won't have money to innovate. So I feel like we're going to have no improvement there from a technology point of view. But let's hope the world turns better than my expectations. Yeah.
Thank you, Lina, and thank you, Mohsen. To pick up what Lina said, I think, if you look at the last 2 years and any major headlines in the newspaper, any disruption was always attributed to the supply chain. So there was always a big pressure on supply chain. Everybody would be blaming supply chain for whatever problems they are in. But we are seeing that transformation happening in terms of how do you best reach out to your customers in the fastest way possible. So there are new trends that are emerging. Mohsen spoke about near sourcing, and then how do you come together to make that possible. Since we speak about pressure, we also have to speak about human capital. We also have to speak about people in this business. So let me request Roop to take it forward from here in terms of people element.
Sure, thank you, Zephyr. We've spoken so much about technology. I would really now like to get your views on what you're doing for your people. Probably a good time to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, are we really doing enough for our people? And I'm going to start with you, Tapan, on this. If you could highlight some of your people initiatives, an industry which your people have to work for long hours, not exactly handsomely paid. How do you attract younger generation? How do you sort of make retail exciting for them as a career choice? How do you attract local GCC?
That's a loaded question. Obviously, through an inclusive and engaging culture. That's got to be the way. But I think what we also do is provide the right tools to all employees. We have a program called Pizza Academy, which sits on every employee's mobile phones, and they go through and they get certified in different stations across the restaurant. So they are always in training per their convenience. All they have to do is tap a few keys and start learning about all the Papa John's standards. The other thing we do is every year we take all our restaurant managers, shift managers and general managers, and the hierarchy above them. We take them to a resort in Ras Al Khaimah, 2 days, everyone under one roof. We entertain them, we educate them, we inform them, we motivate them. And at the end of the 2 days, and of course there are awards and rewards, at the end of the 2 days, they all go back fully charged to deliver on all our objectives for the remaining part of the year and beyond. So that has been such a big hit. We do it annually. But the best part is, all these managers are sitting in Ras Al Khaimah while all other 78 restaurants are run by non-managers. And that's the best part. And these non-managers look forward to one day becoming a manager and attend the 2-day event. But see, the thing is, people are really at the center of our universe. The restaurant business is what it is. And so we just have to do what it takes to retain them. Losing an employee is a big loss. The amount of investment you've put in every employee, it's not easy to replace that investment by simply hiring someone. So no, this is something extremely important, and I'm glad to confirm we take all our assets seriously, especially the human capital.
Thank you. I'll move over to you, Mark. You spoke about marrying human power with the power of technology, because ultimately it's your people selling to people, your customers. How are you enabling them with specific technology pieces? And I ask you this again because returns happen to be one of the biggest challenge for retailers. How are you handling this piece?
I think that's a couple of questions there. I mean, ultimately, retail is a people business, whether it be consumer or at the back end. You know, it's all about people. I think in our business, we always have my lead on HR, you know, she'll always want to talk about things that I call softer things, and I want to talk sometimes about the harder things. You know, that's the way life is, I think, when if you're a CEO trying to lead a business. So we always need to do better, always need to do better. And culture is a very important thing as part of any organisation. I remember when I joined Liwa, it was 7 years ago now, it's flown by very, very quickly. I think I saw Niraj on my first week, actually. I remember it very well. And they thought I was a lunatic when I joined the company, because the first thing I did was, it was a very hierarchical organisation. Everyone had offices. So I knocked all the offices down. You used to have appointments to see certain people in the business. And now we're a completely open plan forum. I don't have an office. I sit on the floor with everybody else. Anyone can come to my desk at any time. You know, it's quite an important thing, because I think people feel that they're a bit more connected with the leadership of the organisation. So I think that's really important. You've got to believe and live the culture that you try and implement. A lot of people will try and put a theoretical culture in and never quite get there. So you've got to live and breathe those ethics. People never leave organisations for money, I don't think, unless it's a crazy offer, and then people will leave and they're going to double their money. So if you do all the surveys in the world, people very rarely leave for money. If they feel valued and they feel listened to and heard in the organisation, then I think they generally stay. So in terms of how people feel valued, it always amazes me when I go to our stores, and I spend quite a bit at least 2 days a week in our stores. If you're talking to your colleagues that work with you in the stores and you're listening to their problems, and you're trying to resolve their problems, and you actually do something about it, and it's very visible, and you make it visible, then I think that goes a long way. And sometimes they just want your photograph with them. It's bizarre, but that's what they want. I mean, they love it. It's how they engage with their leadership. And we have to promote from within. I think that's something that we learned a little bit the hard way as we were trying to increase our, I mean, we're an Abu Dhabi-based company, and trying to get people to come to Abu Dhabi is not easy. So, but my chairman wants us to be in Abu Dhabi. I think I've persuaded him to move on that one, but I think it's easier when we've got people in Dubai. So trying to get people to come to Abu Dhabi was harder. So to try and promote from within became a big thing. But then that means you have to disproportionately manage that process. And then, you can only do that with great communication and, joining up the front end and the back end. The reality of life is we don't always get it right. So we've just got to try harder, and I say that phrase quite a lot. You mentioned returns, which is a different thing. It's not the same point to a certain extent. But if we were talking about that commercial element, we're talking about e-commerce and about how we're setting unreasonable expectations in business, then who says you have to have an e-commerce delivery inside 4 hours? You'd be amazed about the customer patience if they're severely brand loyal, which many people are. I mean, we have Gant as one of our brands, and people love that brand. And we have Licenza, and people love that brand. So what we did with those two brands, there was a point of difference with Gant, where we said we would not promise to you to deliver within actually 48 hours, but we just said, that's it. We're not going to say we'll promise to deliver you in 24 hours. And then with certain product types, we just said, well, actually, you can't return it. It's in the DNA of the transaction. You cannot return it. And people bought it. People buy it. So sometimes I think we have to be careful about setting our expectations, because if you think you've got to be the fastest and do it in 4 hours, then actually that might be over-exceeding what the customer expects. Our returns rate is 10%. One of the biggest detractors from a P&L from an e-commerce business is returns. So there are very well-versed examples where, with one of our partner businesses, his return rate is 50%. He sells dresses. We have his business. In the UK, his return rate is 50%. It kills his profitability. So we did all sorts of work to try and understand what our return rate had to be to make sure that e-commerce made money. It was 10%. So we measured that 10% quite closely with my lead on e-com and make sure we do that. So it's a kind of a service people-related point.
Thank you. Neeraj, may I turn to you? How are you incorporating employee well-being in your ESG agenda?
So, ESG agenda, by the way, we are investing a lot. We also publish our sustainability reports. We have recently signed the pledge also with the local government on that side. But coming back to the employees' well-being, so one of the things I can say means all the people at the apparel group get state-of-the-art insurance. But not only that, we also run 2 of our clinics called Harley International. So we promote a lot of the campaigns and those things for the preventive treatments, and they run a lot of the yoga camps and things like that. So all these things for the well-being of our people. We provide them complete transportation. This is also a part of the ESG agenda. And in the headquarters that we have Tim Hortons cafe. So everything is on the house, so people can have breakfast, lunch, dinner as a takeaway if they want. But we are very much people-driven. I mean, having 18,000 people with us and with over 100 nationalities, it's very important to take care of that. But we also take care right at the early days meals. So we run a buddy program when a new joiner comes in, for getting him to settle in. We also do a lot of the internship programs with the local universities and so on. So, and we do not call our human resources as a department, we call it as a human capital.
Wonderful, thank you. And on that note, I'm going to move on to investments, elephant in the room. So over the next 12 to 24 months, what will be your major investment areas and where? I'll start with you, Ahmed.
I think we discussed earlier the investment cycle. We're shifting the investment cycles into short, medium, and long terms. We're maximum having an investment cycle of 3 years due to the uncertainty that's taking place all over. Yet, we would call our investment strategy for the coming period digging deeper, not wider. We'll dig deeper in whatever we're doing, whatever industries and retail concept that we're having, rather than adding new things. This is the time where you need to get stronger, not wider, more rooted rather than widespread. So I believe we'll have further investments in the supply chain, in the retail concept that we're already operating, and through enhancing our margins and so on. In addition to technology, of course.
Thank you. I'll move on. If you can please highlight some of the initiatives that you have planned for the next 12 to 24 months.
I think we're planning the three major routes in the next maybe 3 years. First route is we're going to double our investment in real estate itself. We have I think in December we'll announce the largest shopping mall, lifestyle shopping mall in the south of the country. There is a big development, the government pushing on Abha area, Asiraba, and we already secured an agreement with the TDF, the Tourism Fund Organization, which we're going to be partner in a huge development, over R1 billion, which going to announce in December in Asir, signed, agreed, everything. So this is going to keep us busy at least 3 years. But in the same time, we are working on the other vision is about spinning off and doing pure property company management to work with the government on those mega and giga projects around the country where the property management is, it will be a major milestone for all those giga projects from a real estate point of view to commercial or residential. And this is going to also put more effort in the technology and the human resource about it. We commissioned already in market studies, and I think next board will make the final decision about that area. Technology will continue. This is a part of our day-to-day exercise, improving our operation, improving our tools and measurement, how to generate better performance to our client and our customer. At the same time, how to improve our efficiencies and tools to be ahead of the games where the market is heading. I think we passed the Corona area, and I think there is, as the previous panels, that the mood in the region is more friendly and more happy about that. It seems to be the international all financial indicators. It gives better edge in this region comparing to other regions, and I think this is we have to be moving also toward that things. Maybe Saudi is a little bit ahead of the games in terms of a lot of investment happening now in the market and different various sector. Technology is one of them, real estate one of them, entertainment and hospitality. Tourism is a huge business in the country. That's one of the reasons that we focus in the south. South will be one of the top destination in the country in the next 5-year investment also.
Thank you so much. And as you rightly mentioned in the morning, the sleeping giant is slowly waking up. Krishna, I'll turn to you now. Where do you see maximum investor activity within retail and F&B?
Sure. So everyone's spoken about what they're doing, and I have very similar sentiments to tell you. In fact, from a market of sellers, not just last couple of years, but maybe even, let's say, the last 3 or 4 years, from having many sellers in the market to now we are in a situation where we're seeing many buyers in the market who are looking to consolidate, who are looking to integrate supply chain models, who are looking to acquire market share, expand geographically. We operate from Africa to Southeast Asia, and surprisingly so, we are seeing clients who are encouragingly wanting to come into this region and invest. And at such pace that sometimes we feel they're probably seeing things that we're not able to visualize ourselves being in this region for so long. So there's a lot of activity. The last couple of years, our report already talks about the kind of M&As that we are seeing in this region. So across the value chain, whether it is brick and mortar or just brands or facilities, manufacturing or core retail. We are seeing investments coming in and interest coming in from clients from across our region of operations to come in and establish base here.
Thank you. And I'll hand this conversation over to you again, Josefa.
Thank you. So, Krishna, just from that perspective, to continue that question, so the investor activity that you are seeing post-pandemic in this region on the ground, is there a specific trend that you are seeing in terms of where that investment is going? Is it supply chain related? Is it logistics related? Or is it purely bringing up retail hospitality setup? Where are you seeing the trends?
I think the trend is more macro-driven. They are seeing opportunity in this space, given what's happening around us. I mean, it's unfortunate where things are, right, from the US to south of Asia. But the feelers we're getting is that they see a tremendous amount of potential in this region. They're therefore wanting to tap into this region. I talked about some of the opportunities, the growth factors. Population here is rising. We've got the highest GDP per capita. The way the region has handled the entire COVID pandemic, people are looking to establishing their own bases here. Real estate, for example, is an indicator of what's happening. There's tremendous amount of investments coming from the governments themselves. So that is really encouraging. And therefore, I think it's a phenomenon across sectors, not just retail, that we are seeing, where investors want to come in and tap into the opportunity they think this region, GCC or Middle East region, has to offer over the next decade.
I will not get into the debate due to the sensitivity of this subject, whether it's UAE or Saudi Arabia or Egypt that is attracting majority of the investment. So we'll park that for more personal conversations at a later stage. But I think a good amount of thought leadership around this table. Today we discussed various topics, not only on this table, but also for the audience that has been around the table next to us, who have had a delightful session, I'm sure, in terms of understanding what each of these business owners had to bring in terms of their thought insights to us. We would like to thank you all for your time, and we look forward to continuing this conversation moving forward in some form or the other, in form of a continued dialogue or a networking opportunity, a networking evening, so that we can continue sharing thoughts and insights in terms of our experiences. Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.